The San Jose Sharks had a fairly busy trade deadline day. We'll break everything down, plus a signing and all it means right now on Teal Town Live. Good afternoon, everyone. If you want to be part of this show, chat with us and fellow Sharks fans, and of course, hockey fans around the world on the page or the app as you're watching this. Follow us on the social, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, SoundCloud's our Reddit page, and of course our Discord, and find everything at tealtownusa.com. Pleased to be joined by Ian Reid. Ian, how are you this afternoon?
I'm good. We have a ticker? Like, how cool is that?
The things we figure out over the weekend.
Things we figure out how to do, yeah. Like we have a ticker. This is amazing.
Right? So
I dig it. All right. I'm over the ticker.
The things we figure out sometimes just playing around with Ecamm. I think I found it a little bit, and then I think AJ jumped on it last night with the Pucknologist. So everything that you will see will be up above on the ticker. But let's get into the depth-wise. I mean, the Sharks made a lot of moves in this deadline day, more so than I think the Sharks really have been involved in any other trade deadline. They overall pick up 3 draft picks, goaltending prospect, somebody that's familiar to Leafs fans, Alexander Barabonov, along with retaining salary on Nick Foligno and Matthias Janmark. Oh, this doesn't have the updated one where we finally find out that it's Nick DeSimone going to Vegas. So let's begin. We can quickly go over everything with Dubnyk and Patterson. Dubnyk being maybe the missing piece to the Colorado Avalanche winning a cup.
I don't know. I mean, it's insurance in goal, right? It's a guy who can play and give you quality minutes. Like, he's not there to obviously be a starter. It's insurance, and I think that when you look at it was a 1 year. It was always going to be a 1 year thing with Devan Dubnyk in San Jose. I don't think there was ever any. It wasn't long term because the reason Minnesota held cap when Dubnyk got moved to the Sharks, and that cap space relief was gonna go away. And they'd have to, and I don't think they were gonna re-sign him next season. I don't know what the Sharks do in goal, but I don't think Devan Dubnyk was ever going to be the long-term answer. I think they brought him in because they wanted to have another guy who they could they didn't want to completely let the wheels, get completely worn down to the rim on Jones, although they say that's not going to happen going forward, and they probably will. Devan Dubnyk, I just never saw him as a long-term solution or a long-term guy for the Sharks. So moving him at the deadline, it was the right move. Was it a hit it out of the park trade? No, but I don't think anything that the Sharks did tonight was like hit it out of the park. It was good. Like, it wasn't I don't think it was bad, but it wasn't great either.
No, I don't think it's a slam dunk. You're getting fourths and fifths in the pick where I don't even think we saw a first really fly, except for Toronto sending Columbus a first for the Nick Foligno deal, and I think the Tampa Bay one.
Got one. Yeah.
And Detroit might have gotten one at the last minute.
In the Mantha trade, I think they got a first. I don't have to go take a look at that again.
Right. So that happened on Saturday with everything going on, and then last night you saw Nick Foligno go to Toronto from Columbus with a slight detour per se, salary wise, with San Jose. The Sharks get Toronto's 4th round pick in this year's draft. Nick Foligno goes to Toronto along with Stefan Nason, who, to kind of use some of your guys' terms with TTG, he was a guy this year.
Yeah.
He looked pretty promising last season, but he was more so a guy for the CUDA. And then Columbus got Toronto's first round pick in 2021 and a fourth round pick in 2022. The Sharks retained 25% of Foligno's salary to make the deal work.
Yeah, I mean the Sharks had cap space that they weren't going to use, and so they weaponized it, and I think it was definitely the right play. I know that we'll get into a thing later on where people won't be happy, but this is what you're supposed to do, right? The Sharks absolutely should not have been buyers this deadline. You have cap space. If you can weaponize that cap space and get something for nothing out of it, I mean, that's basically what they did. They took cap space that they weren't going to use,
right,
and they turned it into something. So great, I mean, that is what they should have done. And I think again, like I'm not, oh my God, this is the best trade deadline ever. But it went according to plan. It went basically the way it should have.
No, I mean there were rumors out there about maybe Kevin Labanc going somewhere. I couldn't see that happening, but I mean there's always that, you never know. But
no, I mean, because it wouldn't be the first time the Sharks have signed a guy to a new deal and then almost immediately moved him. I mean,
ask Devin Savaguchi. So let's get to the super chat. Grayson Hendricks, $4.99 super chat. Thank you very much. Of course, all the donations go to help support
I think
the show.
that, yeah, I don't know. I mean, with the cap being what it is, I think he would have had a hard time finding a taker for that. And I don't think a lot of the cap that he's eating is for the rest of the year, right?
Right.
It's like I don't think there's any of these deals where we're going to be eating up cap space for a significant amount of time. Whereas, so if you even moved Kevin Labanc and ate some cap, you still have to eat that cap for the next 4 years. So I don't think it was ever, I don't know. I don't believe there was ever any serious conversations about Kevin Labanc, despite what's been reported. I don't see it, but who knows?
I just couldn't, because they would need to get a fairly nice haul for that to happen. And I don't mean Taylor Hall.
How do you get it? Yeah.
I mean, what do you get? Because there's a lot of stuff in the air. And honestly, it's more of a buyer's market. You're not going to be shipping out. I mean, you didn't, again, like I said, you're not seeing the high picks fly out of here like crazy.
No.
And with some of the races being as tight, there weren't anybody to, really be that final piece. It's no Nyquist, no Campbell or Guerin, as we've seen in the past from the Sharks. So
yeah, no, I mean, and that's, the Sharks aren't in that mode, and they shouldn't be in that mode.
Right. No, but I'm saying overall in the league wise, I mean, it didn't seem like there was like a massive one, except for maybe
there was a couple of nice trades, but I mean, yeah, we knew that this year was gonna be one of those things where there wasn't gonna be much going on. It's a flat cap. The cap isn't going super, super high anytime soon.
No.
Like I think Seattle should give it a bump. Getting butts back in seats should give it a bump, but I don't know. The problem is we don't know how much money they've lost over the last 2 years. And some people are like, oh, who cares how much money they lost? Like, obviously there's more important things going on. Yes, you're right. There are more important things going on in the NHL losing money, but it has to be said, like, it's a part of the story, right? So we don't know how much money the league has lost in the last 2 years. And we don't know the effect that's going to have on the cap going forward, right? So right now, I mean, I'm sure teams probably wanted to swing some bigger deals, but there was, unless if you are dealing with a team that, for example, like the Mantha deal. Like, I think that, if you're taking from a team that's on the bottom that has, room to sell and take on things, there wasn't a whole lot of teams with that luxury, though. A lot of teams, even ones that are, sitting at the bottom, are still, a lot of those teams are cash strapped still with the cap.
I mean, a lot of teams are, and that's the thing. And with the cap really not moving anytime soon, you got to figure out what you're going to, how to budget. And I think that's where you're going to see, where you saw a lot of these 3-team deals to kind of make these things work. It was quite interesting to see how this thing's
Yeah,
because we thought it was
a
going to be
big
really, really quiet.
Yeah, I mean, and I don't think this was super busy either. Like I don't look at this and I think there's a little bit more going on than maybe we thought, but not much. Like it was a pretty lame duck trade deadline,
Yeah.
in my opinion. I think it's just the moves, the day of it it's easy to overvalue what happens in the day. But I think if we look back on this, you know, um, over the next 5 years, is this going to be a trade deadline where you go, yeah, this was it? I don't think so. Like, I don't think this is a trade deadline we're going to talk about going forward.
I mean, unless Taylor Hall and Curtis Lazar are the missing pieces to the Bruins winning the cup. I
Sure,
mean,
and then
yeah,
maybe
but
at
that's
that
it.
point, yeah, maybe at that point for sure, like you would see, maybe we'll come back to it if one of those moves pays off. But other than that, yeah.
Yeah, and Kevin mentioning in the chat too, Mantha and Bennett were surprising.
Yes, they were, because not only for being bigger moves than I expected to see, but also in return, I thought both of those players got significant returns, considering everything going on right now.
Now I know I saw Verana was a part of the deal to Detroit. Was there first?
Let me bring that up quick here.
Because I was
Have it here somewhere.
because I saw rumblings that it was a first or not. So uh, I know Bennett to Florida got a nice return for Calgary in that one. Uh, like we said, Taylor Hall and Curtis Lazar. I mean, I know a lot of people were trying to make fun of Buffalo, but yes, it's Taylor Hall, but he hasn't exactly lit it up for Buffalo this season.
Well, it's not only that. Here's the other problem too that I don't think is getting enough discussion around it, is the fact that Taylor Hall controlled his destination.
Right.
Taylor Hall has a no movement clause. So if he didn't go, he didn't have to go anywhere. And I think when a player has that kind of power on a 1-year deal, expiring contract, like that really, I know Buffalo's going to get taken to the woodshed for this. And, for the way that team has been managed over the last little bit, probably deservedly so. I don't think they did terrible for this, considering that Taylor Hall ultimately controlled his destination, ultimately could have said, nah, you know what? I'll just wait till I'm a free agent in summer and I'll go where I want then. Like, the return wasn't good, but like he had them over, like Boston probably had Buffalo over a barrel.
Yeah. And to see that, and then Washington acquires Anthony Mantha from Detroit for Panik Vrana, a 2021 first round pick and a 2022 second round pick.
Yeah, that's ridiculous.
Wow. And that was kind of like the last deal that happened at the deadline there.
Yeah.
It's like, that's crazy.
I know everyone talks about like Doug Wilson's a trading wizard, but man, he has nothing on Steve Yzerman. Like Steve Yzerman has pulled some just ridiculous trades over his tenure.
I mean, yeah, if the Caps win the cup, I mean, more power to you, but to me, that's kind of a fleece.
It's a nice haul for Detroit, for sure.
Yeah. So we'll move on to the first trade the Sharks made this morning. They traded Frederick Gaudreau over to the Tampa Bay Lightning for a goaltender. Oh boy, this might trigger Kevin Lacy calling me any moment now. Magnus Corona, goaltending prospect who played for Denver University this past season. 7-11 record, decent over 900 save percentage, and a big guy too, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. The thing is, the really cool thing here with this trade, I like this move. I think a lot of people aren't, they'll look at a lot of some of his numbers in Europe and go, well, what the hell? The thing that I see when I look at this thing is, this is a guy who's been playing on their, you know, for his European club. Like he's been playing, he's played games on their junior 20 team when he was like 17, which I think is, really good. You don't get to do that if you're not that great. He had a really good freshman season in the University of Denver. 920 save percentage, nothing to scoff at there, in 27 games. This year, down year a little bit. Yeah, his save percentage went up. His goals against average went up. Save percentage came down. Also should be stated though, a down year for the University of Denver program as well.
Right.
You know what? I like this. I think, the guy is, I think he's turning 21 this year. So, as far as goalie goes, yeah, I think he's just turning 21. He'll turn 21 in August. So, I mean, for a guy at that, decent numbers, huge, fits the mold of your NHL prospect goalie, right? Like 6 foot 400 and 200 pounds, like big dude. It'll be interesting to see. Like, I think it's an interesting move. Am I like, am I gonna say, oh, this is gonna be his, this is the new guy, this is gonna be the guy? I don't know, but it's an interesting guy to roll the dice on, and he still has the Barracuda do kind of have a goalie logjam, but he has 2 years left of college hockey should he choose to go that route.
Right.
So I think, it's hard with goalies because, I know that the Sharks, like, they don't have, I don't think a lot of teams have like a ton of prospect goalies, because the problem with having a ton of prospect goalies is you got to find places for them to play. So I know some people are a little underwhelmed right now when they look, and I think people have written off Melnichuk really, really quick, and I don't think that's fair. I don't know if Josef Kozinash is going to be the guy, is going to be an NHL guy, but at some point you have to have places for these guys to play. So I like this move because this is a guy who's going to have 2 years of college eligibility left, and then see where it goes from there. And hopefully, he can return to form from his fresh, back to the form that he had in his freshman season. I think there's a lot to like here. Is this the goalie of the future? I don't know, but it's for getting a guy like this for Gleason, I think it's a good move. Like, Frederick Gleason at this point, he's a journeyman guy. He's 28.
Right.
So to get a decent goaltending prospect for, a guy who's pretty much going to be a NHL tweener at best, it's a nice piece of work, I think.
Yeah. Always nice to have the competition going. I mean, Dubnyk, let's see, was a filler to get the guys some marinating in the Barracuda. Now it's time for them to show up and everything. So we move onward, and we will bring in Lacy to break out the departure of Nick DeSimone. But of course, if you're new here, thanks for watching us. Hit that subscribe button. It really does go a long way. Appreciate each and every one of you on this one. But now to the interesting trade of the day, I think, for the Sharks, as they quote-unquote help the Vegas Golden Knights, per se, with acquiring Matthias Janmark from Chicago. I mean, so you get that, and you wonder, why are you helping things out?
Because it's a business.
It is a business. you right.
Because it's a business, right?
But,
like,
yeah, and to have it to quote Doug Wilson on the call that happened less than an hour ago, quote, if we didn't help Vegas, 5 other teams would have. I'd rather we get that pick instead of a rival. So, pleased to be.
Yeah, like you do what you do for your team. Like, I understand. Look, I hate Vegas as much as the next Sharks fan, but it's a business, and if you're gonna take advantage of your cap space, you don't. Well, not for you, bud. Like, the Vegas is not gonna do it. Like the Sharks are no threat to Vegas winning the cup, and the player that they acquired, is that gonna be their? It's a guy that is gonna fill in nice on their team, but it's not. He's not Mark Stone. Like he's not gonna be the reason they win the cup.
Right. So I'm okay with it. Until Janmark, gets the cup winning goal for Vegas.
Then you can at me if you
Right.
want.
I mean, I'm kidding around, but honestly, the Sharks get Buffalo's 5th round pick in 2022, which of course, is like a high 4th, maybe. We'll see. Chicago got Vegas's 2nd round pick, and then Vegas's 3rd round pick in the 2022 draft, while Vegas acquires Janmark, 2022 5th rounder from Chicago, and longtime Barracuda defenseman Nick DeSimone, and that's where we bring in Kevin Lacy on this one. Kevin, is it just kind of sending them a piece to make sure we're under 50 contracts, or was there some interest for Nick DeSimone to get him into Vegas or Henderson?
That's an interesting question I have not had the time to look into as far as the roster count goes, but a lot of moves like this, like the Greg Patterin move that we discussed over the weekend, you do see teams where you'll say, geez, seems like they paid by adding an extra player, but sometimes teams need to move bodies off the roster, and this might be the case. Also with Nick DeSimone, a player who I do think has improved over this season on the in the reef that got washed out with Nick Nollenberger. We talked about how Nick DeSimone has probably been the best defenseman for the Barracuda throughout the season so far. So I'd say his trade value is a little helped by that, but still you're looking at a player who the Sharks probably are looking at and saying, we don't see an NHLer there, or we don't see enough upside, and he's going to be a restricted free agent again after the year, if I'm not mistaken. So you run into a territory where the Sharks may not have even considered bringing him back next year anyway. So he becomes a sweetener in the deal. If you're trying to facilitate cap space just to absorb assets like draft picks in this particular case, and the Barracuda, they're competing for a playoff spot, but at the same time, let's remember that the Barracuda are here to serve the Sharks. So with the number of bodies that the Sharks organization has active in all positions pretty much, it does hurt from a Barracuda standpoint to lose Nick DeSimone, but overall, they got a draft pick that potentially could exceed DeSimone's ceiling, and especially at his age as well. That comes into play there too.
Yeah, I think because this is what I tweeted out basically along these lines. Like DeSimone was a guy, like Kevin, you can attest to this. DeSimone was a guy I was really bullish on when the Sharks acquired him.
Yeah.
But I mean, at this point, like he's plateaued. He should be on the team at this point if he continued on the trajectory that we thought he was on, and he's been continuously passed on the depth chart.
And to your point, Ian, at the start of the year, DeSimone came out flying, looked great, because we thought, oh, he's a taxi squad guy for sure. And then he wasn't. He started the season with the Barracuda. Now, he played phenomenal for them in the first couple of games, got called back up to the taxi squad, but they obviously didn't think of him well enough to push him any further. He saw no NHL action and got sent back to the Barracuda again. So
yeah, like with Vlasic being injured, obviously Nizev's situationed himself really nicely with the team. But, Nick DeSimone was a guy who, in my opinion, when in his first couple of seasons with the organization, like he should be a guy that should, like, especially in an injury situation like they have right now, he should be the guy cracking that lineup, and he's not.
Yeah, and with Nick Malash and Nikolai Knyzhov both basically passing him on the depth chart, and then you've got well, the Sharks had Clayson, who's now basically Greg Pateryn.
Mhm.
Jake Middleton has been playing improved or shown improved play lately that he could eventually be considered for a taxi squad role again. DeSimone, at some point you just need to move on, and I think it's the same thing with like Antti Suomela in the trade with Barabonov, where at some point you know what you have, but if it's not going to get you there, make the change and see if maybe DeSimone does better with Henderson. Maybe
For sure.
Suomela does better with Toronto. Maybe Barabonov does better with San Jose. You know, one of these things where you're not expecting much more. So flip the switch and see if the light turns on.
Yeah, you can see who you can get out, and maybe give, Doug has always said, try to move somebody to give them a chance at being successful elsewhere. That could be what it was, especially. To answer my question earlier, in RM Lowry, you beat me to it. The Sharks have 45 contracts signed with the team, so
yeah.
that wasn't an issue per hand.
Yeah, this is a sweetener thing.
Yeah, so you have that. You have also, the last trade, which was Alexander Barabonov going from Toronto to San Jose with Antti Suomela being sent to the Leafs, or probably most likely to the Marlies.
To the Marlies.
Yeah, in this case. You kind of said something in our Twitter DMs beforehand. It's kind of the Spider-Man pointing at each other meme.
Yeah. Yeah, to me, that's exactly what this is. This is a change of scenery for both guys. These are guys that both did really well. They both did really well in Europe, and they came over, and it hasn't worked out for them like many had hoped it would. I think when I was looking through Leafs Twitter, I think the reaction was, a lot of the people who I think really like Suomela and, from Sharks Twitter, it was very similar reaction to the Barabonov from the Leafs side of things. I think they're both guys I think they're both really talented. I think they just weren't, again, it goes back to guys who should have been able to be on the roster at this point, and they've never made it past, whether it's because, you dislike the coaching staff or it's something they've done or whatever. The thing is, you can have all the talented players you want. You still have to have the coach that wants to put you in the lineup. And I think that this team, it's kind of a fresh start for both players.
Yeah. And that's like, again, fresh starts what we needed. I mean, Barabonov, I know was fairly touted when talking to Leafs Twitter. And
I think he was a player who was linked to the Sharks before he ultimately signed with the Maple Leafs. I might be just out there on that, but I feel like that was something that I saw a couple years, or last year?
Last year, yeah.
And for that matter, I mean, Doug hit home runs with Melker Karlsson and Jonas Donskoy. I think Suomela was kind of that third one that he was hoping would cash in, and unfortunately never really panned out for Doug Wilson in that one. So again, to reiterate everything that has gone down, the Sharks get 3 draft picks, goaltending prospect Magnus Corona and Alexander Barabonov, along with having retained salary on Nick Foligno and Mattias Janmark. They lose Devin Dubnyk, Stefan Noesen, Frederick Gaudreau, Antti Suomela, and of course defenseman Nick DeSimone. And guys, for the cases of Suomela, Dubnyk, Noesen, and Claesson, outside the 5th round pick, and I think was there another 7th round pick for Dubnyk, they didn't lose anything when they picked up these guys. They gained them, and then Doug Wilson moved them and got something back for them. I mean, that's a big plus in my mind.
I completely agree, because even I was going to bring it up anyway, so I'm glad you did, Eric. The trade that facilitated Janmark going to Vegas, it does it makes you wonder, well, was the 5th round pick worth losing to Simone? Yeah, you probably could say that, but still, when it's all said and done, like the Krona deal that you talked about earlier, I don't expect the world out of Krona, but Krona does have a very high ceiling. He's got a very low floor, but he does have a very high ceiling.
Yes.
And that's a trade where Frederick Clason's a guy who no teams made contract offers for. He wasn't in training camp. The Sharks signed him after training camp was over. So they basically picked up Clason for nothing and turned it into Krona and a pick. That easily offsets the addition of DeSimone in that fifth rounder to facilitate Janmark. I think from a net positive standpoint, the Sharks had a good day or had a good weekend.
Yeah, I completely agree. Is it like a lot of people, are probably hoping for bigger moves, like obviously like, high picks for guys off the roster, but I think for what they did well. Like I don't look at this as this isn't to me a failure at all. Like is it, like I said earlier, is it something we're going to come back in 5 years and go, wow, this was such an amazing deadline? No, probably not. But I think for what they did well.
Yeah.
And also, I want to throw in, guys, we accumulated a few draft picks there. Well, was it like 2 fourths and 2 fifths? I missed the graphic, but
it
something
was,
along those lines.
It was 1/4 in 2021, 1/5 in 2021, and then 1/5 in 2022.
Okay. But we know Doug Wilson's history on draft day is to package picks and move up or trade picks and move down for packages. There's a lot of draft pick fluctuation on draft weekend.
Yeah.
So you might look at a 4th and 2 fifths and get a 3rd out of that at some point, or package a 4th we already have with a 4. When it's all said and done, the Sharks got the equivalent of maybe a 3rd round pick and a goalie who I don't mind adding for all that,
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, like it's definitely when you look at, guys to roll the dice on, I think that was a good player to roll the dice on.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And with goaltending, I mean, Amon's a big goalie. He remember on Teal Tinted Glasses, we weren't so thrilled with that draft pick, Ian.
Nope.
And he did have a very good year, won the Memorial Cup as a backup, but I still think that was more indicative on the team than the goaltending, because Amon has not really done much of anything. Yeah. And I don't see more than an ECHL goalie out of him. So that's why you bring in a guy like Krona, especially considering Krona is 6'6". Sawchenko, who was signed today, is 6 feet, maybe. Kozhinash is 6. I think he's listed as 6'2". That's a stretch. The Sharks have they lost Dubnyk and they have Amon for what it's worth, but they really don't have any sizable goalies in the system. So that's another thing with Krona. He brings a different dynamic than what the goalies we already have.
Yeah, just to further what Kevin's saying, last year Zachary Amon had in 53 games had a 316 and a 908, which is in the Q, it's okay.
Q stats.
Yeah, Q stats. But this year, I don't have his overall, but in 21 games, he's been below 880.
Yikes.
And that's as an overage goalie.
And that's as an overage goal. That is tough sledding.
Now, with the signing of Sawchenko, do you think he's kind of a placeholder to be in the taxi squad for the team? So that way, one does play in the CUDA, one does play is the backup for the Sharks, just to have that mentality of, oh crap, just in case.
Kevin, I hate using that term, but yes, that's exactly what happens. Ian is happening. Ian, go ahead.
No, yeah, exactly. I mean, yeah, just basically, yeah, what Kevin said, right? I mean, you had to have a guy has to be on an NHL contract to be on the taxi squad,
right?
And Sawchenko's going to be that guy, which is unfortunate for him. I mean, good for him because he's going to make some money off the deal, obviously. But also, but also unfortunate that he's really just holding that spot down so that they can send Kozanash and Melnichuk up and down without really disrupting anything else.
But the thing of it also is Sawchenko can still learn from being around NHL players. Absolutely. And have an NHL coaching staff helping him as opposed, and I mentioned it with Kozanash, how bringing in Danny Sabrin brings a different perspective of goaltending mentality this year, which I think really helped him. And I know that he worked on his game in the offseason, but I don't know how much Zach Sawchenko has worked with Evgeny Nabokov over the past couple of years. Well, last year he did because Nabby was the goalie coach for the Barracuda, but this year I think it does help him because I think Sawchenko really thrived under Nabokov last year. Mm-hmm. Hasn't gotten hardly any playing time this year, which is why he probably becomes the de facto placeholder on the taxi squad. But still, I think there is benefit to him because even if he doesn't end up with the Sharks, I think that he could get himself a contract with another team that gives him more opportunity. For the Sharks, it serves right now. For Sawchenko, I think long term, this move helps him.
Yeah, especially for a team without an ECHL affiliate, like they have an absolute logjam of goaltending.
Yeah.
So, to quickly, because I know Kevin, you got to get back to work, but you have. Yeah, I know.
I got 20 minutes.
Okay. We got time. No, but honestly, guys, we saw the Sharks draft 9 forwards. 9, I believe. 9 in last year's draft.
Yep.
You have now a plethora of goaltenders. What are you doing? I mean, I know it's really early, and I know the draft isn't as expecting to be as populous with prospects this year.
It's not a deep draft this year at all.
Yeah. So what do the Sharks go after? Do they kind of go pick here and there with forwards and defensemen, or are they getting picks to get picks to make, like Kevin said, maybe package them up and move up?
I think you just I don't think you draft for position. Like, I think drafting for position is a fool's errand. I think you just, you have guys you like, and then you use your assets in order to get those guys, whether, like you said earlier about moving up or down, and trying to maximize, try and get as many guys off your board as you possibly can. I think that's what the goal should be. They're prospects, right? I mean, look, a lot of people will say, oh, well, none of these guys are going to turn out. Well, there's a finite number of NHL jobs, and how many people are drafted every year? Like, yeah, most of them aren't going to make it.
Joe Pavelski had no chance as a 7th round pick, right?
Right.
And I mean, look, Nabby was a later round pick, in fact, if I'm not mistaken, and tell me if I'm wrong, guys. 9th round, and that 9th round doesn't exist anymore.
No, so. it's 7 rounds, but even still, like, there's a finite number of jobs, right? So I mean, the glass half full is like, well, most of these guys aren't going to make it. That's fair, but you want to put yourself in a position to get as many guys that are on your board as possible, and then you hope that you can develop and that they can develop themselves, and you get a couple of players out of it. That's the end goal.
Right. So there was a media call with Doug Wilson earlier. Some of the things he mentioned, some of the quotes. By the time we get to the draft, I wouldn't be surprised if we have 10 picks. I don't know how many there are right now. We've explored a lot of things, but we're trying to win now also. He was saying, and we're trying to compete this season. We're trying to make the playoffs. If there was a fair deal that would have gotten us a player for now and the future, we would have done it. Of course, with all this happening and everything, the one name you didn't hear was Patrick Marleau. And that means Patrick Marleau will be a Shark when he breaks the record Monday night in Las Vegas. And Doug Wilson going on with saying, we're excited to see Marleau break the record as a Shark. Also provided some updates saying that Matt Nieto is back skating and we expect him back in the next couple of weeks. We've missed him as a player. And I think Bob Bugner even mentioned Vlasic was skating again, and his target date is Friday. So
it is amazing to me how Doug Wilson is like the master of seeing which way the wind's blowing and then making a statement. He's the master of it. Like, he says nothing all the time. Like, he's made a career out of saying nothing. It's amazing.
I think with Patrick Marleau, I did say over the weekend that I did not expect him to be traded, because for me, I think if there was interest around the league, I think Doug Wilson would have pulled the trigger, because I think he reads the writing on the wall and knows that this team needs to plan for the future here.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't see, unlike the last couple of years with Marleau, where he had more in the tank, this year I didn't see Marleau approaching Doug Wilson and saying, I want to go win a cup. I think Patrick Marleau is just happy to still be playing in the league and playing every night, and the Sharks are giving that to him. So I don't think from the Marleau standpoint, I think he knew his time was last 2 years or last 3 years or whatever, and it didn't happen for him. So I think, again, Wilson would have facilitated it if there was something to be had there. But I also think if Marcus Sorensen had any interest around the league, he would have been gone before Marleau.
And Elliot Friedman mentioned on Hockey Night in Canada on Saturday night that there was some interest in Curtis Gabriel. So
I don't know why. Like, going back to like NHL GMs are stupid. I tweeted this earlier. It's like, I don't know why. Like, why would anyone want Curtis Gabriel? Every team has multiple of those guys already in their system without the sideshow.
Currently, the Sharks per cap friendly, which is per Felix, have 8 picks this year. They have a first, a third, 2 fourths, 2 fifths, a sixth, and a seventh. So they do have 8 picks. So Doug Wilson looking for 2 more to get in there for sure. So I think that'll do it for us. In case you missed anything or you want to check this out again, check us out on tealtownusa.com or your favorite podcatcher, whether it's Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts. Get away from here.
It is the trade deadline recap.
Yes, it is the trade deadline recap. Spotify, TuneIn, iHeartRadio, of course, always available at tealtownusa.com. So as I bring it, there's a quick look at everything that's transpired for the Sharks as well. Guys, final thoughts. Kevin, I'll begin with you. Overall, a decent day, not like an outstanding day. We're not playing the parade down Santa Clara Street, but decent day for the Sharks.
I think this day is going to be important. Maybe not. We may not realize it for a while. We may not realize it at all. But I think that this day could go somewhere. It's not going to go downward. I see no negative aspects about this day whatsoever. I don't think we're going to be crying if the Barracuda failed to miss the playoff or failed to make the playoffs because they lost Nick DeSimone. They have plenty of players who can step into that role. I don't think the Sharks are going to miss the playoffs because they traded Devin Dubnyk or Frederick Claesson. Like, I think the assets they got are fine, and the Sharks had a lot of movement. Like, overall, Doug Wilson was a lot busier than, at least putting pen to paper, a lot busy, or sending those faxes in, or however they do it now. He was pretty busy. So for the people who chastise Doug Wilson and say he doesn't do enough, I thought he did fine.
Yeah, I mean, I completely echo what Kevin said. Again, is Nick DeSimone going to turn around and be a Norris defenseman in 2 years? No, it's fine. Like, guys, like I like Nick DeSimone. Don't get me wrong.
Me too.
But he's a guy.
Yeah.
He's another guy in the guy factory. So you did good. Like, he did good. I thought everything he did today was fine. Again, is it blow your socks off good? No, but it wasn't bad. Like I'm not disappointed by any of it. Like I think you did more than I thought they were gonna do. So yeah, I mean definitely successful trade deadline. I think for the Sharks getting rid of making moves that they could make. I think like you said earlier, like they said earlier, like if Suomela or not Suomela, sorry, if Sorensen or Marlowe had takers, they'd be gone, but they probably didn't, and that's fine.
Just like Melker Karlsson last year.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Another guy.
Yep.
I think Doug Wilson, if someone called on a guy, Doug Wilson was listening. So I don't think, some people chastise, oh, well, Sorensen's not gone, Marlowe's not gone, whatever. You have to have a trade partner. So I think all things considered, it was a good deadline. Amazing? No, but it was good. And that's all that matters.
Mm-hmm.
And they still need to fill out the lineup for the rest of this season and potentially the playoffs. So keeping Sorensen around, keeping Marlowe around still serves a purpose.
Yep, absolutely. So quickly as I go, Kevin's at Kevin Lacy 22 on Twitter. Ian's at Ian Blogs Hockey on Twitter. I'm at PuckGuy14. Ian, I'll ask you this, and I'll follow it up, Kevin. I want who won the deadline? Because that's a cheesy thing you have to ask. And then it's the deadline. So right now, who's playing in the Cup final?
Oh, I have no idea. Sellers won the deadline. Sellers absolutely won the deadline, and I think they usually do. I know that's really broad, but I mean, look at the return for that Calgary got. Look at the return that Detroit got. Sellers win always.
Kevin?
Yeah. I mean, I'm looking through the trades, all the trades here. I mean, I do think Detroit won. Getting what they got for Mantha. I mean, Mantha, the Red Wings are rebuilding. Mm-hmm. So, and Mantha's about to start hitting his prime. So, and the Red Wings are nowhere close to competing while Mantha's in his prime. So you might as well move him and get some future assets, which they did. Jakub Vrana is a really good player who has had problems with the coach in Washington. So I wasn't surprised Vrana went. He gets a fresh start in Detroit along with 2 picks and Richard Panik. So I think, after already moving Patrick Nemeth and John Merrill over the last couple of days, Detroit's a winner. I think Toronto's a winner. I love Nick Foligno. Mm-hmm. It's funny to me, guys. I'll try and keep this short, but this season, last season, and even for me going into this season, I questioned the character that the Maple Leafs had. They brought in Thornton and Simmons, and I said, what's that going to do? It's made a lot of difference for them. It really has. And so to add Nick Foligno, who is another all-character talented player, and Ben Hutton, I don't know if you guys heard the interview Ben Hutton had. He's a depth defenseman, but my God, was that guy excited to be traded to the Maple Leafs. And that's what you want. You want good, positive culture going in, especially into the Toronto market. So I think
Toronto, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, Kevin.
Yeah.
I think if you're Toronto, you have to put all your chips in, because next year you have to assume things are going back to normal, which means Tampa's and Florida are coming back into your division. You have this is the year to push all your chips in if you're Toronto. It seems really crazy to say that because they're still such a young team.
Total sense.
But this is the year you do it, right?
Yeah.
And Toronto's stacked and it's ready to go. I mean, push all the right pieces. You're in round 3. I mean, because of everything, it's going to be reseeded, so you don't know who you could be playing. You could be playing Vegas. You could be playing Boston. You could be playing Tampa.
Right, but you're not going to play Boston in the first round.
Exactly.
You're not going to play Tampa in the first round, right? That's the difference. This is why, if you're Toronto, you push all your chips in this year. Absolutely.
Yeah. So I hesitated. I know I picked Washington as my preseason pick to win the Cup, not just represent the East. I do think Toronto is making a very strong case for it. I'll say right now, Toronto and Colorado.
That's kind of where I'm going with Toronto and Colorado, indeed.
I'm gonna lose myself some followers. I really think, like, I don't know, they do have Peter DeBoer behind the bench, but Vegas still scares the shit out of me.
I should have done the Landy earlier. Oh well, I'm kidding. For Ian and Kevin, I'm Eric. We'll be back with you tonight for Teal Town After Dark, following the Sharks and the Ducks. That's a 7:30 game. So I'll try to rest my voice in the meantime. And until then, keep it real, keep it Teal, keep it real, Teal. Have a great day, everyone. We'll see you tonight, following Sharks and Ducks on After Dark.